Uh,
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being with us in this December monthly call for our Microsoft US Dynamics partners. Today, we're going to talk about the common data services that we use to call common data model, and it's linked to our recent blog post. Just some housekeeping here first. The slides and the recording will be available for all of you through our Yammer group. If you're not there yet, please be connected with us through the Yammer community. This call is going to be recorded and is intended to Dynamics partners. If you're not a partner or you don't want to be part of a recorded call, you may disconnect now. For today's session, we invited Arif Quresh, our Director of Program Management, and Arijit Bezu, our Principal Program Manager. And so we have the best of the best here to help us understanding better the common data services and how it relates to Dynamics. With that, I'll hand over to Arif. Thank you, Arif, for being with us. You can take control now.
Okay, thank you. So what I wanted to talk about first is kind of go through what the common data service is, how it adds to Power Apps and Microsoft Flow, and then Arijit will take you through some hands-on demos, and then we'll answer questions at the end. So kind of starting out, this is our standard slide. If you've kind of been to Power Apps talks in the past, you've seen this slide, but I think it makes a point, so it's worth repeating. The idea with Power Apps is that there's a scope of business problems that enterprises want to solve, and only a small amount of the problems can be solved by off-the-shelf software as a service solutions. And then people try to build custom software to solve many of their business problems or to create automated business processes in their organizations. But due to the cost of it and due to the resources you need, the skills that you need, they manage to only automate a few more than are available off the shelf. And what we would like to show with Power Apps is that if we're able to lower the cost of kind of building apps, if we're able to lower the cost of deploying databases and building declarative servers, then there is a whole spectrum of opportunity to automate business processes in an organization. So much more than are available in off-the-shelf, much more than if you would hire a custom developer for. And the idea is that you can click the code and build some applications that are robust, that have a database, that have a middle tier fairly easily. And this is our goal. Right now, what you see in the GA, we're not quite there yet, and we'll talk about that in the roadmap. So if we look at the Microsoft Intelligent Business Platform, at the top, the important things are that we want to enable folks to measure, act, and automate with this business platform. And we've outlined two groups of folks who would do that. One of them are the power users, and then the other ones are the developers. So for power users, they measure with Power BI, and once they have a data source and a model, they kind of they're able to go to Power BI desktop or use other means to define reports, but everything is point and click and visual interface. Similarly, when power users want to act, when they want to build apps, we want to position Power Apps, and you will see later when Arijit does the demos that Power Apps has sort of a PowerPoint-like development model where, again, you kind of build your app just like you would build a slide deck. And you add expressions which are comparable to Excel expressions. And so with that process, you can point and click your way to an app. And our goal with the CDS is to add to that experience the ability to model a data tier and very shortly in the next few months also model a middle tier. Then finally, Microsoft Flow lets you automate your business processes, and in the same vein as the other two, it's all done with visual editing, click to code, typing a few expressions here and there. So Measure, Act, and Automate for power users is Power BI, Power Apps, and Microsoft Flow. And the Common Data Service adds to these three by providing a declarative backend right now for data store, and in the near future for logic as well. So underneath that, we have a non-declarative development, C#, JavaScript, all those types of things that you're used to. So in the Intelligent Business Platform, we fully support these things. I think the easiest one to talk about is the Azure Logic Apps. So Azure Logic Apps is almost a one-for-one counterpart of Microsoft Flow. The only difference is that this one you deploy with Platform as a Service on Azure, and you can write code here and deploy your assemblies, versus here it's all visual development. But the idea with this tier is that whatever you can do as a power user and more, you can do down here by being able to code directly to the platform. So obviously the difference here is that you're working with Platform as a Service, and here you're working with Software as a Service. Then the last tier shows that the Common Data Service and the connectors and gateways. The Common Data Service is a way to define a middle tier and data storage, and connectors and gateways are a way to connect to arbitrary services that exist in your enterprise. For example, you can connect to CRM, you can connect to Dynamics 365 for operations, or Dynamics 365 for sales, also Salesforce, and many other services you can connect via the connectors and gateway. And if you want to build a custom middle tier, custom server logic, custom backend, then you can use Common Data Service. And both of these tiers are available to the Pro tier. So Azure Logic Apps can use connectors and gateways as well. And we're working on our SDK so that all of these tiers can use the Common Data Service as well. So moving forward from there, talking about what's the Common Data Service. So first of all, I'd like to say that it's an easy to provision, scalable data store that provides security, storage, and behavior, just like it's written here. And it also will provide in the near future ability to write server-side logic. But the thing that differentiates, I think there was a question earlier, the thing that differentiates the Common Data Service from SQL Server is that first and foremost, it's software as a service. So when you get a Power Apps license, a P1 or P2 license, if you guys want to check that out on the web, you get a Common Data Service that you can provision with that license. If you get a P2 license, you can provision, and with a P1 license, you can use. So our goal with the Common Data Service, first and foremost, is to kind of provide software as a service with a per-user license. And what we provide with that is that you get a data store that scales as you add users, and the data store has durability built in, high availability built in. So everything that you would want for a production environment is built in. So we maintain the SQL Azure replicas and all of that stuff. Beyond that, the Common Data Service can serve multiple purposes. One of the purposes it can serve is as an operational data store, where you can bring data to it. And we're actively working right now on our Power BI connector for the Common Data Service. The idea there is that, as you bring data to the Common Data Service, the model that you have defined will automatically be understood by Power BI. So you can use Power BI Desktop to kind of expose that data. And we're kind of working on the end-to-end scenario for that, and like very early next year, we will do some previews of that. So you can use it as an operational data store. You can also use it as a place to build apps where you want to keep custom state for flows and Power Apps. So it's very natural to use because there's no additional user management you need to do. So if you use a connector to external services, there's a bit more credential management you may have to do, whereas with the Common Data Service, it's part of Power Apps. So as you share your app, the database is shared with it. And then number 3, we provide a standard schema through a set of standard entities, and we will talk about that in a little bit. But the idea there is that we want to have a standard set of entities that all apps can use, and then the idea is that as apps kind of build data in a common place, it will kind of drive value. Like, because we have standard entities, it's easier for people to build and ship apps because they can count on some standard schema. We do also allow folks to create custom schema, so the standard schema is not a limit. You can extend it and you can add custom entities. Okay, so kind of a summary of the Common Data Service. First of all, it's secure. We're going to build it with all the security methodology that we use for all our other services. It's built for scale. As we're building it out using all the service infrastructure that we use for other services like Power BI or for Dynamics AX. We're using all the same infrastructure components. We're using the same operations processes. So it's built for scale. It's extensible. It's metadata rich, so that we will continue to add more and more features to our metadata. We currently have complex types, currency, referential integrity. We will, and we have association relationships. We'll continue to add more things like header line relationships and those sorts of things. We're very focused on performance as well, so that we've had quite a few people do performance tests even on our preview environments, and we've had good feedback. So very focused on performance, making sure it's extensible, built for scale, and secure. So what we would like to do, again, to reiterate, provide software as a service. When you get a Power Apps license, you should be able to use the Common Data Service with it, with the appropriate license. Okay, this slide is an interesting one where there are kind of two sides of the coin where folks want to build apps very quickly. So fast iterative development, they want their development to be cross-platform. They want it to be, they want it to look good, and they want it to be easy so they can, kind of work collaboratively with their users. Like, say, hey, how about this? Is that what you wanted? And if, if they get feedback, they can quickly change it. They can make sure that their users are not blocked by the types of devices they have. They can use the solutions on any device. So usually the challenge with platforms that have fast iterative development is that they're not secure and they're not reliable. And what we've tried to do is kind of separate the two things and then put them back together so that the application development can be done by a different set of personas than the management of the server, or the security model, the data modeling, and in the near future, the business logic that's going to run there. So the idea is that we allow app makers to kind of work in the top rectangle here, and then there's a configuration which is not on by default, which you can turn on and say, even though I want app makers to work and build apps very quickly, very fast with Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow, I still want to keep control over my data, and I can take away the privilege of altering the database and keep it with a few people, environment admin and database owner. So we have different roles in our security model. So we have environment admin, who pretty much owns the environment and can set up the rest of the security roles. And then we have a special role called database owner, which only that person is allowed to assign security, and only that person is allowed to change the schema. And then separate from that role, we have another role called app makers, who can then build apps and flows. So by doing this separation, in production environments, we can make sure that the data is secure, and then at the same time we can let the front end be open, because that is the Power Apps experience, that anybody can build a flow, anybody can build a Power App, but they can only build it against what they have access to. Okay, so moving on from here, I'm just going to go through these slides very quickly because Arjit will show many of these things. So first, and if you read our Power Apps blog, I do have a blog out there which all this content is pulled from, on introducing the Common Data Service at GA. So the first part is that we released a Common Data Model in the Common Data Service. So Common Data Service is the platform, it's the runtime, and Common Data Model is the schema of the entities that we ship out of the box. So we shipped about 65 entities in 5 groups. So we have foundational entities such as address currency, we have people, organizations, and groups. We have some purchasing and sales entities and case management entities. So we're still working on our list of things that we want to support. This is a core area where we want feedback. But there are a couple of reasons for building these out. One, we would like to make sure that the entities that overlap with Microsoft Graph are there, so that we can make sure that the scenarios that will be covered by Graph and by CDS and other dynamic services like CRM around people, that we cover those scenarios and make sure that the data is synchronized appropriately. And we are also working on purchasing and sales and case management, much in master, first of all in master data, because we want to build synchronization scenarios there, but we also have some transactional documents because we also want to synchronize some of that data for analytics at this point. Okay, moving on from the common data model to what our goals are for it. So the goal for the common data model, and again that's the shared schema within the common data service, is to ensure that every app doesn't create app-specific custom entities. So we know that we have a small footprint at the moment, so many folks will create the custom entities. We're hoping that, based on your feedback, we'll expand the common data model to make sure we have the base covered. So if we have a common data model that meets many people's requirements, then they can share those entities. And if one app is inserting into the same place as another app, then you get some snowball effect and grow your data in the service. Okay, so moving forward, so with the common data model, it really is not useful if you don't have a security model, because everybody needs to kind of make sure that if two apps are using the same table, then they have appropriate security for role-based security in many cases. So we definitely have a roadmap happening here. So right now what we've shipped at GA is we have entity level authorization, or you can think of it as table level authorization. And I already talked about the 4-level, the separation of app makers from DBOs, so I'm going to skip that here. But our security model really is currently table level security, and we're going to move to record level security and field level security in our roadmap. And to kind of give you an idea of how our security model is built, so I'm going to skip forward. You guys can look at the deck afterwards. So basically, we have a familiar security model for the folks who have worked with Dynamics AX, where we have the entities, so standard entities and custom entities secured by permission. So permission is the ability to give create, read, update, or delete, or a combination thereof, and you can group these into permission sets, and which you then can assign those security roles. So the idea is that the person who created the entities creates the permissions and the permission sets. For example, if the entity is customer, you can create a permission set called maintain customer, another permission set called approve orders or things like that. So kind of encapsulating the details of how to assign permissions in a permission set, and then the admin creates security roles and associates permission sets. So it's a relatively standard idea that's in place in other Dynamics products. Okay, and then kind of moving beyond security, this is just a laundry list of features that we have put in to GA. So the first feature we put in data import-export framework. So we've taken the data import-export functionality from Dynamics AX and adapted it for the common data service, and we plan to expand even further in the near future. So the first feature is that you're able to create template files. So let's say you would like to build an app and import data into it. So you need some template files for your entities that you will fill in and then load. So we have a feature called export template on each of the entities, so you can build templates, export them. It will add the required fields, add the fields you want, and then you can export. And then you can fill those templates for import. We also have cases where you may start with a custom spreadsheet, not one that you created as a template. So in that case, we have field mappings that you can map the column names in the Excel to the names of your entity. We also have, actually this is a great feature that's worth a demo, so hopefully we have time to demo this afterwards. We have a fully connected interactive Excel client as well. So before or while you're building your app, if you want to just debug what data is flowing in and out, you can look at the entities in real time, change the data in real time using the interactive data editor in Excel. And not only do we have the interactive data editor in Excel, right now we have at GA time, we have an Entity Data Explorer built into the product where you can browse the data that you're working with in the Power Apps Maker portal as well. We're working on getting this to have edit capabilities So in the near future, you will also be able to just edit data in place here as an app developer while you're working on your app. Okay, so I will hand off to Arjit and take a look in the conversation window for questions while he talks and kind of talks you through those things with a demo.
Thank you, Arif. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I would be taking over and walking you through some of the concepts of the common data services, as well as sharing or showing some of the apps that we have built and what we plan to do in the roadmap features. So on my screen, I have the Power Apps homepage. So when you log into the homepage, you can get started for free, or if you have an account in an O365 tenant, you can just sign in. So once you sign in, you will be taken to the Power Apps homepage. You will have a default environment, which Arif mentioned, but you will also be able to go ahead and create multiple environments by clicking on the gear icon and then Admin Center. So let me go to the Admin Center and show you the first thing, how to create environments. Now, environments are self-contained containers which has database and apps, and they are secluded or isolated from each other. So a typical use case of environment would be a dev, a test, pre-prod, and a prod. So here I have a list of all the environments, ones that I have created, or the ones which were shared with me. To create a new environment, you click on New, you give it an environment name, then you select the region where this environment would be deployed. This is particularly important for your Power Apps and CDS deployment, because this should be nearness or near to the users who are going to use the app. So if you have users who are in the Europe region, you will go and select Europe, Asia, Australia, India, Japan, appropriately. By default, we have United States. Now we have to deploy the database for this environment. Now, as Arif mentioned, the common data model is a set of 60 plus entities which we ship out of the box and which are extensible, and I'll show you in a minute. To deploy the default database, select Create a Database. You have options of securing the database. So either you can give every user access to that set of entities, or you can have selective access based on security rights and privileges. So once you select the appropriate option, click on Create an Environment, which should take a couple of minutes. So I will not go ahead and do that, but I'll show you one of the environments I had created. So this is an environment which I had created. I'll click on this. Now, each environment have security rights and permission sets. This is the way of securing an environment and isolating it by giving policies and privileges from users. So if you have a dev environment and you would like to secure it by keeping it within a certain set of people, this is the place where you can go ahead and set it up. So you have environment roles, which are admin and maker, which come by default. You also have the option of creating new environment roles. After environment roles, we have things called user roles. You can have multiple user roles. By default, you have the database owner, which has got complete access to the CDS database, and a normal user who will have read-only access. Once you have defined user roles, then comes the permission sets, as what Arif was mentioning. Permission sets basically are entity level security, which tells the system like what entities a particular user should access. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the data level security is something which is planned and will be releasing shortly. Let's take a look at one of the permission sets, maintain account data. When you click on edit, you will come to the screen, which will give you the name and description and a list of entities and what operations they have. For example, a user who has access to maintaining account data can create, read, update, delete. You can also have a new role, which basically says view account data, where you can go and say just read only. So this is the way you go ahead, set up your environment and secure it based on proper rights and privileges. Let us now go back once your environment has been created. So coming back to the Power Apps homepage, I come here and select the environment that I have created. Since I have multiple environments, I'll select the one which was created a couple of hours ago. In the homepage, you'll see a list of all the apps. If you are new to this, you will not see any app, but you will have the option of a wizard which will help you get started. Now, to navigate this Common Data Services, come to the left and click on Common Data Service, and then you will see a list of entities and pick lists. When you click on the entities, these were the set of entities which were deployed when you clicked or created your environments. We ship 60 plus entities out of the box, and they are of type standard. You have the option of also extending an entity. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the base entities, say account. When you click on account, you will see the list of fields that come with account, as well as the properties of each field. We have different party type, organization name, full name, and for our partners who are familiar with the AX and CRM world, you will find similarity with the party model in both these products. They have been kept in purpose to ensure that we have a common data entity which can help in synchronizing data between these ERP systems. Now, when you take a look at each of these entities, fields, you will see they have a different data type, and you have separate properties which can actually be used. You also have in an account or an entity the keys which are required, the relationships, if any, because they are used for lookups. Field groups is something very similar to what we have for Microsoft Dynamics AX or Microsoft Dynamics 365 for operations, which lets you go ahead and group your fields so they can be used later for rendering controls on forms. You also have a tab called data, which helps you see some of the sample data which we ship out of the box. You can either use this data or you can go ahead and also update your own data. When you select an entity, you can import data, export data, as well as open the data in Excel, and this will download a plugin. So if I click on Open in Excel, the system will download an Excel file out here. When you click on this, it will open the Excel along with the add-in, which takes a little bit of time, and then you should be able to go ahead and modify the details in the Excel file. Let's go back into the entity list. Now let's go ahead and see how we can create a new entity. So when you click on Create a New Entity, you can give an entity name. Let's say my new. I would prefer you give it a proper name, not my new entity. Give it a display name. This is what it's displayed on the forms and on the list. Give it some description, and then click on Next. Once you click Next, you'll be taken to a set of screens which will let you go ahead and add attributes. By default, you will see a list of all the standard attributes which we add out of the box. You cannot remove these. These are primary IDs, which are the auto-generated number sequence, and some IDs related to audit and controls, which lets us know or users know who was the user created by. It's basically authorization. To add a new field, click on this Add Field. You can give a name, so my new field. That's the display name. Now you have to give it a name which does not allow blanks, and then select any of the data types. We support a bunch of out-of-box data types, and you can select the data type based on what your requirements are. You can either have a text, quantity, pick list, phone, and based on what you select, you will be able to go ahead and further configure it. So let's assume that we go ahead and select, hey, this is a pick list. If you select this is a pick list, you will be able to go and select the pick list option. You can either mark it as unique, required, or searchable, which would in case add it as an index. You can also go ahead, once you save it, you will be able to add relationships. So I will not go ahead and save this, but I'll show you an existing entity which we had created. So any new entity which you create will have the title called custom. So I have an entity called equipments, which holds a list of my plant equipments. So all the machines which are in a factory floor, and this is the entity which was created as a custom entity. So you will see some of the base attributes which were created and most of the ones which are new. And on the relationship tab, you will see a list of all the relationships with other base entities which we have created. You can go ahead, import your data in Excel, export it out, or open the data in Excel. So this is how you go ahead and create an entity out of the box or modify an existing entity. Once you have gone ahead and created the entities in your environment, the next step comes in building an app. So I'll show you how to go ahead and start building an app. Then we will take you through one of the screens which shows how we have built an app which works with Microsoft Dynamics 365 for operations. To click a new app, click Next, and then we will have two options, either for the web or for the Windows. So let's go to the web. Once I select the option for the web, we'll have a browser window open up which will give me a list of options which starts with your data. I have multiple options. I can either click with the template options, which will give me an app from data where I can select the entity, or I can go ahead and select a blank app, basically like a phone or a tablet layout, and then manually add the data sources. Let's go ahead and create an app from the base template, which is the phone layout. When you click on this, the Power Apps canvas will go ahead and ensure that you have the canvas ready. And as RF was mentioning, it's like a PowerPoint layout, very familiar to end users. Once we have the canvas, the next step would be adding data sources. So let's go ahead and add data sources by clicking on Content, Data Source, and then adding the data source. Now you have a bunch of connections. Some of them are by default. You can always go ahead and add a new connection, but for this section, you will see that you have the Common Data Service already added as a connection, provided you have the premium SKU. To add a new connections like SharePoint or Excel or any other thing, click on Add New Connections and select any of the existing connectors. Else, go back and I will select the Common Data Service. Once I select the Common Data Service, I'm going to go ahead and now it will give me my entity list. Let's go ahead and search for equipments, and I will add that equipment data source which we had created a couple of hours ago. So you select the entity which you created from the Common Data Service and click on Connect. You have the option of selecting multiple entities. So while it goes ahead and loads it up, so once it loads up, you will have the entity which was created, you will have the data source, and then you can drag and drop controls and ensure that you can build your app. So while this takes time, a little bit of time initially to warm it up, I'll go into the presentation mode where we will show you how we have created one sample entity. So coming back into the screen, we have created a sample app which works with Microsoft Dynamics 365 for CRM or sales and operations. The sample app basically takes in data from AX or Microsoft Dynamics 365 for operations, gets it into a set of Common Data Services entities. It's like a plant maintenance app. So very familiar with the manufacturing customers. When you go to a factory, you have equipment maintenance done. There are inspections, work orders created, and then work orders are serviced. So this app basically we created completely consists of additional entities in Common Data Service. It gets the data from ERP, puts it into the Common Data Service where the user can go and create a work order, and it also has integrations with a whole set of third-party entities, or I would say first-party, which is one of them is the Azure Data Catalog, Office 365 Graph, and SharePoint. So let me move to, I'll come to the demo, but let me give you the flow. So first we have Microsoft Dynamics 365 operations on the left-hand side. You can have CRM, you can have NAV, you can have any other LOB systems. We have the following entities for ERP, which is work centers, employees, vendors, and purchase orders. In my Common Data Services, I have gone ahead and created similar entities if they did not exist or use some of the existing ones. First, what happens is the synchronization framework, which we will also be releasing shortly, gets the data from the ERP and puts it into resources, workers, and suppliers. Once I have that, I can see this data into the Power App which we have just created, which I'll show. From the Power App, a worker can go ahead, inspect an equipment, and go ahead and post a work order. Once the work order comes into these common data services, we use Microsoft Flow, which is another product, but it is extremely tightly integrated with Power Apps and CDS. Microsoft Flow takes the work order and then sends it back into Microsoft Dynamics 365 for operations as a purchase order. You can have any source system as long as you have the connectors available in Flow. We have all the Dynamics 365 product connectors available in Flow. You also have data coming from the Azure Data Catalog and coming into as telemetry data, which you can see for machines. So let me go ahead and show you the app which we have built. So on my screen, you can see the Power Apps option. I have a complicated app which we built, which basically explains the slide which we have shown. It's called Plant Maintenance. Let me go ahead and run this app. When I click on Run, this app was built basically as a tablet mode, so it helps our equipment maintenance engineers in the factory to go from machine to machine, do a regular inspection, and then report back the results. Click on Get Started, and you will see a list of options which we have. We have equipments, we can see work orders, we can create new inspection reports, capacity planning, knowledge base, which is very important for all factory levels because they need standard operating procedures, user manuals. We have plant layout, released work orders, and managing spares. So for example, if there's lubricant in a machine which has gone down or it needs a little bit of repair, touch up, topping up of oil, you usually go not raising a purchase requisition, but you go to the stores in the factory and put in a requisition slip and then take the equipment out of the store. So let's go through this app one by one, and I'll explain how this works. When I click on equipment, I see a list of all the equipments on my left-hand side. So when we will release the connector between CDS, ERP, which is CRM and AX, this details will basically come from the Microsoft Dynamics AX Work Center controls or Work Center resources. So if I go one by one on each of these resources, I will see the right-hand side of the page change. So I have the image of a pump. This is the generator. This is a different generator, a diesel generator. So let's select the second one, and you will see that I have two graphs out here, weekly power consumption and weekly throughput. Again, this will be a connector which we will release for the Azure IoT. We don't have a full timeline of this, but we will be enabling connectors which will help you connect to different services. This is the data which comes from the machine's throughput and power consumption. It can be weekly or it can be hourly based on what your IoT scenarios are. Now on the bottom we have the equipment image with all the details, as well as a different tab which contains the inspection details. So all the inspection which was done on this equipment, like it can be hourly, it can be daily, it can be weekly, are recorded here by the engineer. So as and when you move from equipment to equipment, you will see that this list changes along with the graph. So this gives you a very good dashboard of the equipment overall state. If you think as a user, you can go ahead and create an inspection log or create a work order. Let's go to the work order screen from here. So let's assume that you have gone to an equipment and you have seen that there is some issue with the work order. It needs maintenance. So out here you can go and create a work order, select the equipment, give it a description, and then select the work order date. Once you have done, click the work order and you will see the work order getting created out here. And all this data basically is residing in CDS. You can also go ahead and look at all the different assembly line capacity. Now this data can come from ERP or it can come from Excel or third-party systems. We then have the knowledge base. So on the left, we usually have all the knowledge articles which we are using, the KB articles, which are required for preventive or predictive maintenance and industry standard operating manuals. On the right, we have a PowerPoint or a PDF viewer, which you can go ahead and embed any PDF documents. Then we move into the plant layout. we can view different plant layout by selecting different plants, and you will see the plant layout change. This is the release work order screens. So all the work orders which were created, you will be able to see out here. And when you select the work order, you will see the familiar 3 screens, which is the original, duplicate, and triplicate. You also have the stores management, which I'm navigating from here. And these are the standard consumables which are there in every factory store. You can go ahead, select it for purpose, select the product, and create the requisition, which will basically go ahead and deduct the item from CDS. Now, all this is happening within the common data service. Now, once I go ahead and create a work order, I can navigate back into my ERP in my browser and click on Flow. Now, Flow is another product which helps me integrate my common data service with Microsoft Dynamics ERP. It can be CRM or operations. So I have a very standard flow which was created. I can click on this flow in edit mode and show you how the data flows back into the ERP. So flow works on the basis of triggers and events. So the first one is basically an event. So we say that when a record is created as a work order table. So while it goes ahead and opens up, so this basically is the trigger. So whenever a person goes ahead and creates a work order, that becomes my trigger. And then the actions which are there are, I take that work order, create a purchase order in Microsoft Dynamics 365 for operations, and then send out an email to all the concerned stakeholders that there is an equipment or machine which is down, and it basically is impacting production and as well as schedule. So while this loads up, the flow basically takes the data and creates a purchase order. So I go back into operations, look at accounts payables, click on all purchase orders, and I'll show you a sample purchase order which was created. So this is one of the purchase orders which was created. It's called the AdventureWorks Plant Maintenance, and this was automatically created by flow based on what equipment was down. So out here I can go ahead and see that this was sent to this vendor US 111. It had a line number which was equipment maintenance service along with all the details. So this is basically how you can go ahead, wire up CDS with ERP and other connectors. So it gives you a complete 360 view of all the features and facilities which are available. Now coming back into the presentation. So this is exactly what we showed you. We get data from CDS, from the ERP. We generate data, which basically Art mentioned use as a transactional processing system, and then send the data back in. We are also getting telemetry data from Azure or any other static systems, which basically we can wire up with any reporting system. So as and when we have connectors available for Power BI, you will be able to use that as a data warehouse or an OLAP system. So as you see, the common data services serve multiple purposes, both as a transaction processing system as well as a reporting and PI system. Now let's go into a little bit of the CDS roadmap. And as RF showed you, like we have done a lot of releases on the GA, which happened in November. And we also have gone ahead and, we are having bi-weekly updates. Now this is something which the roadmap is. We made it generally available. We are doing bug fixes, pick lists, demo data update. What's also planned in the next quarter or the next calendar year, 6 months, again, are some data integrations, declarative forms, Power BI support, authorizations. And again, this is a roadmap. It's for general purposes only, and it's subjected to change. So I just want to our valued customer and partners to be aware that these things can change based on priorities and market demand. But this is something which in general we have planned for the next 6 months. If you have feedback or if you think, you have some important features, please do, get back to us on this feature. So this is basically what the common data service is. And we are releasing on a very regular basis. We will be releasing a whole set of new entities. We will be releasing the sample app, which I showed you, which was the plant maintenance, as well as a series of other apps which we can be used for showcasing scenarios across industries or across specific domains. And we would be working with our partners to ensure that we help them, build up their teams and practice to ensure that they are up to date on knowledge and as well as resources on the common data services and Power Apps platform. So Arif, if you want to maybe speak a little bit about, a little bit on the roadmap, and then we can kind of wrap it up.
Right. So we've kind of moved very fast. In August, we did a preview of the common data service with Power Apps, and in November, we did GA. And since November, we've been working on fixing bugs and enabling some incremental features like pick lists and translations. Next year, though, first half, we do have a roadmap for features. So we would like to do a preview of our data integration, where we bring bulk data into CDS from various sources. We also want to do a preview of our declarative form experience. So there are many cases where you want to build apps like a PowerPoint slide where everything is just right. But there are also other scenarios where you want to quickly build forms. So we're going to have a declarative forms experience. Whoever is controlling the deck, you've switched away from the roadmap slide. Thank you. App lifecycle management is going to be on the roadmap for next year. App lifecycle management means that you can create a solution with the Power App, Flow, and Common Data Service entities, and then import and export the definitions of all three together. We are currently working on Power BI support, which will be available early next year, where you can mark up entities similar to how you can in Dynamics 365 for operations, and then have the analytic tabular model automatically be generated and available in Power BI Desktop. So we're working on that. And then the Power BI service will be able to access the common data service directly using direct query. So we're working on that. Authorization updates for next year will include record level and field level security. We also have plans to make sure our declarative form modeling is available for SharePoint data sources. And in addition to data integration, we want to have a point-and-click way to easily bring, similar to Power Query, data in and out of, so kind of improving the functionality of our data import and export. And the last two are about writing logic on the server. So at this time, you can't write logic against at the server side for the CDS. But beginning of next year, we're going to work on two mechanisms. One of them is similar if you are familiar with writing logic against SQL Azure from Power Apps using custom APIs. We want to have that same ability for CDS. So we're going to publish an SDK that you can use from Azure Functions to access the CDS. And the last one is we want to have declarative logic defined on the server. So that's a bit of the roadmap, and I think we are
doing well on time,
yep.
So I think Karen, I think we should, if there are any questions which we are answering, but we'd be happy to collaborate with our partners. I would be happy if our partners would be able to reach out to me if they have any questions, or if they have any, if they require any assistance on helping them with their effort on Power Apps CDS, building up their practice, or requiring any assistance. We'd be more than happy to work with you. My email ID can be shared, and please do get in touch with me, and I'll be more than happy to work with you or answer your question.
Okay. Thank you so much, Arif and Arjit. On behalf of the Dynamics ETU, I appreciate a lot for what you presented today. That was an awesome presentation, highlighting all the potential of the current solution and the great and awesome features coming up. That's really important for all our Dynamics partners. I also would like to extend my thanks here to Karen Barb from the Dynamics CTU managing all the questions. Once again, to all our partners, the recording and PowerPoint presentation will be made available on our Yammer group, so be connected to us. Once again, thank you so much for everyone being here, and we can disconnect now.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks all.